American automakers are now on the brink of a serious shock, and among them, the legendary Ford Motor Company is facing some of the highest risks. Following the recent announcement by the Donald Trump administration of potential 100% tariffs on imports from China and the subsequent countermeasures from Beijing, U.S. car manufacturers are preparing for the most serious impact in years. According to the Wall Street Journal and Politico, internal White House analytical reports acknowledge that in a full-scale tariff war, the automotive industry would be one of the first victims. Sources in U.S. business circles claim that emergency meetings have already begun in the headquarters of major companies. In Dearborn, where Ford is based, closed meetings were held between company executives and representatives of the Department of Commerce and the Department of Labor. According to Reuters sources, company leadership directly warned federal authorities that if the tariffs take full effect, supply chains would collapse within the first quarter of the year 2026. The situation is reminiscent of 2018, when Trump's previous tariffs caused a temporary production shutdown at Ford's Michigan plant. At that time, operations recovered quickly, but now the scale of the threat is far greater. Unlike that period, the current tariffs target not only finished vehicles but also components, from microchips and lithium-ion batteries to navigation systems and electronic modules. Every third element in new Ford F-150, Bronco, and Mustang Mach-E models originates in China. If 100% is added to that cost, the production of these vehicles becomes economically unviable. That is why, according to Bloomberg Automotive Watch, the company is considering scenarios for the temporary mothballing of 2 assembly lines in Ohio and Illinois. Against this backdrop, Ford is seeking alternatives. Negotiations are underway with suppliers from South Korea, Vietnam, and India, but experts describe these steps as emergency measures. It is impossible to reconfigure a production chain built over decades in just a few months. Even if logistics are restructured, this will inevitably drive up prices for end consumers. Cars that were supposed to cost $40,000 could rise to $50,000 or even $60,000, which would mean falling sales, lower revenues, and another wave of layoffs. Insiders in the White House claim that this is precisely why Trump ordered preparations to accelerate for a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, scheduled to take place in 2 weeks on neutral ground in Singapore. The main goal is to ease the pressure of the trade war and find a compromise that would buy American companies time. According to diplomatic sources, one of the options being discussed is the temporary exclusion of critical categories, such as auto parts and electronics, from the tariffs. If the negotiations are successful, Ford and the entire U.S. auto industry will get a chance to breathe and adapt. But if no compromise is reached, the country may face a new recession similar to the 2008 crisis, when the automotive industry was the first victim of the financial collapse. Today, the stakes are even higher, as these decisions will determine not only the future of one brand, but also America's image as an industrial power. And yet, despite the anxiety, cautious optimism reigns within Ford. Company leaders believe the negotiations will take place, the economy will find balance, and the American auto industry will weather another storm. But as sources on the board of directors admit, what is at stake now is the very meaning of Made in America. If the tariff war spirals out of control, this slogan could become not a symbol of pride, but a reminder of how political ambitions can bring down an entire industry. However, against the backdrop of mounting pressure and growing uncertainty, more and more experts in the United States are beginning to say that what is happening can no longer be seen as a mere trade dispute between 2 superpowers. It is a full-scale economic confrontation in which the stakes go far beyond individual companies. According to the Peterson Institute for International Economics, the new tariffs could trigger a chain reaction across industries similar to the domino effect of the pandemic era, when the disruption of a single component supply brought entire sectors to a standstill. But whereas that crisis was caused by disease, this one could be triggered by politics. Internal Federal Reserve reports leaked to the press through MarketWatch indicate that if the current course continues, inflation in the United States could rise by 1.5% to 2% by early 2026 due to higher prices for industrial goods and automobiles. This could wipe out recent gains in price stabilization and undermine Trump's electoral prospects ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. Some economists are already calling the situation a self-inflicted wound to American industry, arguing that protectionism designed to protect jobs will end up destroying even more of them than globalization. Within Ford itself, heated debates are underway over the company's future strategy. According to sources close to the board of directors, some top managers are pushing for accelerated supply diversification, including shifting part of electric vehicle assembly to Mexico and Canada, where customs regimes remain more lenient. Others, however, believe such moves could anger the White House and lead to reputational damage, as Trump has repeatedly accused Ford of exporting jobs overseas. As a result, the company is treading carefully, trying to balance politics and economics, while key decisions are being postponed until after the upcoming Trump-Xi Jinping meeting. Meanwhile, according to Global Times and the South China Morning Post, China is preparing its own package of countermeasures aimed specifically at U.S. automakers. Chinese sources say Beijing may impose restrictions on the export of rare earth metals and lithium, key elements for battery and electric motor production. If that happens, the blow to Ford, General Motors, and Tesla would be immediate, since modern electric vehicles cannot be produced without these materials. Some analysts are already calling it the lithium salvo, a symmetrical response to U.S. tariffs that could jeopardize the entire U.S. electric vehicle transition strategy. Goldman Sachs analysts forecast that under an escalation scenario, Ford could lose up to 1/4 of its market capitalization over the next 6 months. Nevertheless, the company maintains an outward calm. In its official statements, Ford emphasizes that it is engaged in constructive dialogue with the U.S. administration and is counting on stabilization of the situation. But according to sources, the company is preparing for any outcome, including the temporary suspension of some production lines, a review of the model lineup, and cuts in research and development spending. There is a tense atmosphere inside Ford headquarters. Workers on the shop floor discuss rumors, engineers build projections, and corporate financial analysts hold nightly meetings calculating how long the company can hold out in the event of a full-scale tariff war. A sense of déjà vu hangs in the air, as if the 2008 crisis is returning in a new guise. Then the collapse began with mortgage securities, now with tariff barriers. But in both cases, it is ordinary Americans, the hands that build the cars that became a national symbol, who find themselves under threat. And while Trump and Xi Jinping prepare for their meeting, for hundreds of thousands of workers, the future remains uncertain. No one knows whether the upcoming summit will be a rescue or the last step before the storm. And for Ford, this moment could be historic, the point at which it will be decided whether the legendary brand remains a symbol of American power or becomes the first casualty of a new global economic restructuring.